впрямую и четко выяснены отношения, сброшены все маски, и когда те, кто называет сегодня себя демократами, в то время являясь остолопами, растяпами, преступниками,
ну, а что я буду читать-то? Вот, давай читать, поэтому и выключи. Нет, я не смогу сейчас читать. Да у меня настроение хуёвое сейчас вообще.
Посидели и смотрели, как уходят по тоннелю. Кто хотел и не хотел, и это не беда. Гуси плавали в канале, в результате 3 медали. Не догнали, не поймали, та-та-та-та-та. За постами наблюдения, за темными аллеями, крадущиеся тени, я иду гулять. А за шторами просторы, светофоры, семафоры, проходные коридоры, поминай, как звать, только я иду гулять.
The National Bolshevik Party has its footholdings in 1930s Germany, a dissatisfaction with the absence of Marxist economics and Germany's Nazi-fascist party. It did not have that much influence. However, these thoughts have no advanced pretension to the relevant 90s national avant-garde, beyond baseline communist theory and fascist aesthetics. Alexander Dugin's beliefs are rooted in anti-Western sentiment, decelerationism, Pan-Africanism, and the absence and dismissal and antagonization of individualism. Despite 1930s political praxis being established in the Nazbol ideology, one could say that the Nazbols in 90s Russia were almost alien to it. They cultivated their own code, and it was almost irrelevant to Nazism, especially considering Dugin's beliefs regarding racism. He was highly anti-colonization. Dugin also used the word racist very flippantly against concepts not even pertaining to biological race.
Истинная культура, истинная духовность должна происходить из традиций, из нации. И вот мы считаем, что нация является носителем древних традиционных ценностей. Мы уважаем наших предков и считаем, что они были не глупее нас. И предки наших предков были не глупее нас, а подчас и умнее. Ведь каких героев мы видим в нашем прошлом и кого мы видим вокруг. Каких прекрасные события, какие подвиги, какое величие мы видим в истории и что мы видим сейчас. Наши предки были великими людьми, и они придерживались национальных, они принадлежали какой-то нации, принадлежали этике этой нации, принадлежали государству.
Nowadays, Dugin disavows homosexuality, but one of the founding members of the Nazbol party was a gay man who had an interest in black men. Nazbols in 90s Russia were criticized and demonized for having a member of their party be a semi-open gay man, well known for writing the book It's Me and Eddie, which details a gay interracial relationship. Detailed also in this article at the time were wild accusations against Letov for simply holding a cat. The photo shows the leader of Grasdanskaya Oborona, Yegor Letov, and some mad dude. As you can see, Igor affectionately holds a kitty in his arms, looking at him from his eyepieces and grinning good-naturedly in his mustache. Proceeding from this, that in the writings of the unforgettable Fyodor Limonov, who is the leader of the National Bolshevik Party, such as It's Me, Edechka, very often describes different psychological predilections for sexual intercourse with men and other things that are accepted in the Philistine environment as perversions. Then we can assume where and why they will now take the poor kitty. If you look closely, it is noticeable that passion and desire covers Igor and his comrade. All this marasmus is written to the fact that Letov sympathized with national patriots and is almost a mouthpiece of the ideas of the NBP. It turns out into an interesting picture. Letov is obviously a zoophile, and Limonov is a gay, and if you dig into it, the unknown secrets of the NBP will surface. It will be better to rename it to the National Bolshevik Gay Party. A great ship, asks Deep Waters. This was written by a journalist in the 90s.
Во время концерта территория этого зала является освобожденной от ельцинского оккупационного кровавого режима.
The code of the Nazbol party in 90s Russia goes as follows. Rossiyский прояв consists of those who resist the very principle of Babylonian civilization that rules our world, and also resist the rules of the game, and the very stasis of life imposed on them by the powers. Our movement consists of those very people who share our views, our ideas, and system of values. That is, strictly speaking, the eternal revolutionaries and extremists.
Потому что только крайние силы всегда побеждают. Побеждают только те движения, которые попирают правила игры. Если надо, даже и свои собственные. Поэтому мы будем и с Баркашовым, и с Анфиловым. Вот. Моя цель – это революция.
The Nazbols, despite being nationalist, ironically, had very anti-establishment values, and looking at this code almost seems anti-statist, with the line saying, resisting Babylonian civilization, one of the very first civilizations in human history. Make of that what you will, but it sounds very contradicting, something which many people have criticized Letov for being. In his life, he was anti-Soviet, then a pro-Soviet nationalist, and then later on he considered himself a green anarchist. Letov, at the very least, had no truly racist leanings, only nationalistic ones, as stated in this interview.
Были несомненные ошибки, как в германском фашизме. Вот. Я считаю, что нельзя клеймить фашизм, именно идеологически, за те жертвы, которые повлек гитлеровский фашизм, германский фашизм. Потому что это были издержки сугубо национальной культуры. То есть германская нация, германская культура в течение последних столетий пришла к столь умозрительному и рассудочному отношению к личности, к человеку, что это неизбежно привело к тому, что начали делать перчатки с человеческой кожей, набивать подушки женскими волосами, как это было в Германии, варить мыло из людей. Вот. То есть это издержки сугубо национальной культуры, именно германской, умозрительной, философской, скажем так, культуры.
А вот скажи мне, вот у тебя бывает часто связывают с гонением на евреев, так ли это?
Нет, конечно. У нас директор еврей. Этим все сказано уже просто-напросто. А оператор у нас цыган. Поэтому говорить национализм – это не расизм, извините. Да. То есть,
просто очень
мы не расисты, то есть у нас гитарист армянин, у нас у всех просто в группе до недавнего времени у нас был басист еврей, пока не ушел. Поэтому, то есть мы не антисемиты. Вот. А национализм представляет собой что? Это интересы нации, той, которая живет на территории. Национализм есть двоякий. Национализм по крови, национализм по территории. И национализм по территории.
Make of what you will of Letov's association with nationalism. After the takeover of Boris Yeltsin in the 90s Russian regional civil war, the NBP party emerged somewhat from the veils of obscurity. The dissatisfaction with the abolition of the Communist Party and the government was apparent in the people and in the communist supporters. Yeltsin effectively got rid of the only people who could question his authority in the government, despite the fact that one can argue many were nostalgic for the Soviet way of life, but after the economic downfall of Gorbachev, people saw the same results, if worse, during Yeltsin. You could see dissatisfaction, especially in Letov.
Какая судьба у вас есть?
Не знаю. То есть мы будем пытаться сделать все, чтобы к власти пришли наш блок, национал-коммунистический. В нашей стране ничего не известно никогда. И может быть нас в течение, может быть, этой недели просто расстреляют, убьют, потому что у нас у власти мафия. Законы очень жестокие в нашей стране. Кроме того, что когда приходят власти революционеры, их обычно тоже расстреливают, потому что на смену им приходит новая бюрократия.
Alongside the communists, National Bolshevik members and punks took to the streets during the conflict. Letov's role in the NBP was quite ambiguous. Despite being one of the founding members, he almost served as a rallying and morale boost for the movement. But mainly what could be seen at many of these concerts and conventions were dissatisfied youth and angry punk rockers. You could also contest that many really weren't there for the political praxis and messaging entirely, some just for the political performances, the music performances, and their musical protagonist Letov, or they were anti-establishment punks and or dissatisfied Soviets.
Егор Летов — это для меня просто кумир, и больше ничего. Я не верю в эти коммунистические идеи.
Это определенные эмоции, которые он выплескивает. Эти эмоции мне просто по кайфу. У меня просто точно такие же эмоции.
Кстати, я просто говорю, просто не надо всерьез воспринимать все эти телеги. Это про коммунизм, там, про нацизм, это, не столь серьезно, как кажется. Скорее надо воспринимать от этой музыки какое-то настроение брать.
Да.
One could say that those growing up with Letov's music, once they reached of age, most likely didn't follow the dissolved ways of the Nazbols, and instead found other anti-establishment, anarchist, or punk values. After all, it was an ideology simply against the system. It didn't matter how extreme you were as long as you disliked the status quo. Despite the Nazbols during Yeltsin in the 90s mainly being comprised of Letov fans attending concerts, they had sincere followers, even if they were fewer or less loud. They also weren't exempt from more severe controversy beyond the punk showmanship and the anti-Yeltsin attitudes. Letov was the earliest member to leave in 1998, and later Dugin in the early 2000s, but Limonov remained a staunch member, and took very extreme action when in 2000 to 2001, Edward Limonov was accused of preparing an armed invasion in Kazakhstan to protect the Russian-speaking population. In April 2001, he was imprisoned in the FSB investigative isolation facility on charges of possession of weapons and the creation of illegal armed formations. The charges were later dropped. On April 15, 2003, he was sentenced to 4 years of imprisonment.
Из Эдуарда Лимонова по паспорту Савенко не удалось сделать национал-большевистского Бен Ладена, а репутации главного писателя-скандалиста тюрьма только на пользу. Хотя не дай бог укреплять свой авторитет отсидкой 2 с лишним лет. Собственно, условно-досрочное и стало возможно от того, что минуло более половины срока, а грозило лет 15.
Помню, как ты подошел, как поскрипывал паркет, как поставил на мой стол чайных роз большой.
Мои товарищи смотрят телевизор.
Я решила ты скакать. Или вор авторитет, оказалась просто тварь.
Очень мощная.
Брал на понт, тушите свет.
Сегодня дают гороховую.
И весь вечер флиртовал. И разжег в груди пожар, а когда поцеловал, Миша смазал лузу шар. Как узнали, что ты мент?
The party dissolved in 2007, and Edward Limonov took part in other extreme political organizations, and Dugin also remained in political discourse outside of the Nazbol party. Dugin is often equated to a Putin earpiece. Despite this, however, one could say that the Nazbol party was still highly performative in the 90s, and the violent actions and radical political positions taken by its founding members, Limonov and Dugin, were almost completely detached from the original purpose of the movement in the 90s. Later in its lifespan, it wholly pertained to the personal political thoughts and preaching of their personal extreme political beliefs. Letov, however, was since out of this equation in 1998. And especially in the 2000s, and decided to completely remove himself from politics. You could speculate and give benefit of the doubt to Yegor. Perhaps only Letov was a punk, who stuck to it as an island of protest, and dragged thousands of fans with him, while Dugin and Limonov were more likely to preach some personal political idea. Maybe Letov truly wanted to change things for the better, but got wrapped up in something more abysmal than he foreseen. Also, another event to note is that during a concert, unfortunately, there was a tendency to attract genuinely racist actors like skinheads at his concerts. A native Siberian was targeted and unfortunately was a victim and was murdered. Letov disavowed fascism in 2004 and described it as something they had to deal with in the past, and that it is one of the most disgusting offensives.